What started out as peaceful protests in dozens of cities erupted in violence. In Los Angeles, police vehicles were set on fire, sending plumes of black smoke over the area. Similar scenes in cities ranging from Seattle, where a 5 p.m. curfew has been set, to Miami, where thousands gathered through the day, and where, like in so many other areas, a standoff with police ended in clouds of tear gas. In Chicago, where demonstrators held signs carrying messages of protest that were repeated throughout the nation. In New York, a city that is still to emerge from the ravages of a pandemic, a series of protests took place throughout the 5 boroughs. And in Minneapolis, the city where George Floyd was killed and where the national wave of protest began. The president left the White House in the mid-morning to attend the SpaceX launch, and afterwards expressed his sympathy for George Floyd and his family, but also had this to say about the protesters.
The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists. The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings.
This in the wake of a tweet saying if protesters had broken the Secret Service ring outside the White House, they would have been greeted with the most vicious dogs and most ominous weapons I have seen. The reference to vicious dogs seen by Washington's Mayor Muriel Bowser as a throwback to the police use of dogs on African-American civil rights activists decades ago. And in an extraordinary tweet of her own, the mayor lashed out at the president in the White House, saying, and I quote, "While he hides behind his fence, afraid, alone, I stand with people peacefully exercising their First Amendment right after the murder of George Floyd and hundreds of years of institutional racism. There are no vicious dogs and ominous weapons. There is just a scared man, afraid, alone." Into the night, crowds continued to gather within sight and sound of the president's residence, clashing with police and Secret Service agents on several occasions. Washington, D.C. became one of more than 11 cities where the National Guard has been mobilized. And amidst the flickering of flames and swirling smoke, curfews were declared in a number of areas. This in a nation just emerging from a months-long lockdown in the face of a pandemic. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.